We'll kick it off here. The National Council of Provinces has today heard that the South African Police Service is short of 87,000 members. Gender-based violence also dominated discussions during the sitting. The police chief's financial officer, Puleng Dimpane, has blamed the staff shortage on budget cuts.
Saying ideally, for us to be able to deal with this situation, we at least need to be 193,000. However, the actual numbers takes us to 105 at this point in time. So we are seeing a staffing establishment that is declining, and this is, of course, as a result of those constraints that were mentioned earlier in terms of the fiscal constraints, what we receive from National Treasury, where we need to then operate within those particular limitations in this regard. So this slide is just indicating that we are aware, for us to be able to deal with this at police station level, how many people are supposed to be there. So we are not where ideally we are supposed to be as a result of an impact of these constraints within the resources.
Well, President Cyril Ramaphosa concedes that despite interventions, little has changed in the fight against gender-based violence. He made the comments during his keynote address at a two-day summit aimed at tackling the problem. The president adding that government does remain committed to tackling crimes against women and children.
Between the first quarter of 2021 and the first quarter of 2022, there was a 52% increase in the murder of women and a 46% increase in the number of children who were murdered. Not a day goes by without a story in our newspapers, on television and online platforms about a woman or a child that has lost their life or been abused in the most horrendous manner.
Police Minister Bheki Cele telling the summit that his ministry has beefed up resources to tackle the backlog in DNA testing. He's hoping that the problem, which is vital in sexual crime cases, will be addressed by January.
We have had a serious problem of the backlog of DNA, which last April was 241,000. That backlog has been slashed as we speak now to 71,000. With the full hope that come January we'll do away with backlog, we'll deal with backlog and begin to deal with the new entrants that will help us to fast track the results of the abused, raped and murdered women. We have put mechanism, we have strengthened the laboratories, more people have been employed, especially in Western Cape and here in Pretoria. Contracts has been signed. For some reason, some people allow those contracts to lapse. 16 of them, they've been signed and we're monitoring them that they never lapse again. Machines have been improved. New machines have been bought. More money has been put in laboratories, even the money for overtime.
Well, for more on that summit, we're joined by Newzroom Afrika's Zikhona Tshona. She's been at the summit the entire day. Zikhona, many ways that one could describe really what we saw happen at Gallagher State in Midrand. A very charged room, yet again, very angry activists, community workers who feel that government is simply not coming to the party when it comes to its own bit in fighting the scourge of gender-based violence and femicide.
Certainly, Kathy, civil society groups are definitely not happy with government's efforts and work. They were calling for accountability, calling for implementation that will change the status quo. They're saying government is simply not showing that it's not proving that it takes the plight of gender-based violence seriously. They want funding. They want laws to be changed. They basically want ministers to know exactly what it is that they are dealing with on the ground, and they're not convinced by all the reports that were given today by Minister of Justice, Minister of Police, as well as the Minister for Women, Youths and Persons with Disability. They're saying those are not the reflection of what is happening on the ground. And you would have seen a little earlier on when they were given that chance to bring across their views and direct them to the president as well as those ministers. When the time ran out for that session, people were angry because they felt it was time for them to speak to the leaders directly. And in fact, they had to extend the time for the civil society groups to be able to speak to the president directly.
One of the big issues that has come out of today is that you have a number of stakeholders that have committed to the National Strategic Plan. As it stands, that document seems to have just gathered dust because some of what was supposed to be implemented, in fact, most of it, is simply not where it needs to be.
In fact, some organizations are saying that the work that is committed to in that strategic plan, they are doing on their own with their own funding without the support of government. We had children coming out to say that they were not involved in the drafting of that document, and they as children themselves are also victims of gender-based violence. So certainly there is a call for that plan to be put into action. There's also the Gender-Based Violence and Femicide bill that NGOs are fighting for Parliament to put into action and make sure that government also commits firmly to taking a stand and having plans that will change the way that things are currently with regard to gender-based violence and femicide in this country.
You had very robust interactions by the activists, especially when it came to the ministers, asking ministers specific questions. What was the general response of those ministers today?
Well, the general response by ministers was that they are happy with the way that their departments are handling gender-based violence. They believe that there have been improvements and changes. The president, in fact, is the one that came out to say that he concedes that government needs to step up. Government needs to treat this issue with the agency and prioritize it, because civil society groups at the moment seem to be working alone. Yet, back in 2018, which is how the summit came about, we had thousands of women taking to the streets, marching to Parliament, marching to the building in the President's office in Pretoria to deliver a memorandum of demands, which is why we are where we are today. And they certainly, these civil organizations are saying government needs to step up. And they were pleased that the President himself came out of his mouth to say that government is not coming to the party with regards to fighting the scourge of gender-based violence in this country. And he's also called on private sector to support NGOs, to put some money, some funds into the work that is being done on the ground, because these are the people that are affected by gender-based violence, the victims of gender-based violence are employees of companies. So therefore, certainly private sector needs to come to the party, but a bigger call for government to pull up its socks in that summit today.
All right, Zikhona Tshona, we'll leave it there for today, and of course